Even though creatine is the most studied and the most researched supplement in the supplement industry, you still have so much stuff circulating out there about it that is just bullshit. And I don't know where it comes from, and we're going to talk about that. So the first thing that I want to talk about, and the thing that I hear more than anything else as to why people don't take creatine, is hair loss. So many people have this idea that if they start taking creatine, they're going to lose their hair. It is not true. It is unequivocally, without a doubt, not true. The only reason this myth exists is because there was one study that was done in 2009 that showed that the participants who were taking creatine showed an increase in dihydrogen testosterone. Dihydrotestosterone is a male hormone that causes hair loss in some men. Notice how I said some men. Not all men lose their hair loss due to dihydrotestosterone. So already, dihydrotestosterone is the reason for hair loss in some men. Now, you're saying, okay, there you go. Creatine is linked to an increase in dihydrotestosterone, which means that creatine is linked to hair loss. No, because there's been 13 studies on creatine and its effects on male hormones. Out of those 13 studies, 10 of them concluded that there was no increase in male hormones or any changes in male hormones while the participants were taking creatine. So what does this mean? This means that we have 13 studies done on the effects of creatine as it pertains to male hormones. 10 of them concluded no increase in male hormones or fluctuation of any male hormones of any kind. 3 said there were fluctuations of hormones, and one study showed an increase in a hormone linked to hair loss. In science, you have to be able to replicate something many times over before you can say that it is true or that it happens. This has actually been disproven 10 other times. Actually 12 other times as it relates to dihydrotestosterone, 10 other times as it pertains to hormones at all. So it's safe to say you do not have to worry about hair loss on creatine. I promise you. It is my seal of promising approval. You don't have to worry about it. The next topic as it pertains to creatine and its effects on your body is going to be water weight gain. A lot of people have this idea that if you start taking creatine, you are going to just bloat up. I've heard so many people, I would take creatine, but I don't want to bloat. I don't want my physique to look like shit, right? So many people say that. Another myth. You're not going to bloat. You're not going to bloat. A study from 2003 that tracked the effects of the participants when they took creatine for 30 days found that 30 days of taking creatine, participants gained on average 3.75 pounds. So if you're worried about bloating, I promise you 3.75 pounds is really not going to show a difference in the mirror. I promise it will not. There have been other studies as well on the effects of creatine and water weight, and it turns out that a lot of times the water weight retention that you get from creatine is typically only during the loading phase, which is about a week, maybe 2 weeks at most. So once you hit that week to 2 week mark, you're typically going to see a little bit of a weight decrease actually, and that water retention should go away. So while water retention does happen when on creatine, it's not going to be some crazy debacle of like gaining 15 pounds and looking like shit. You might gain a few pounds and it'll probably come off in a couple weeks. So don't worry about it. This is my favorite one because I've been fed this myth since I was a wee laddie. My dad told me if I'm taking creatine, he told me, make sure you drink a lot of water. Make sure you drink a lot of water or else you're gonna pass out or something. And my mom saw some article that said like some kid had passed out or suffered a heat stroke because he he was taking creatine and he wasn't hydrated. So a lot of people have this myth, or rather I should say, have this conception in their head, this idea that if you're taking creatine, you need to drink so much water and you're going to be dehydrated. And it's not good for your running or any type of endurance activities. You're more susceptible to heat strokes. And that is simply not the case. And I, quite frankly, have no fucking clue where that came from. I have no fucking clue where that idea even started. I don't know. The great thing about creatine is that it actually has been shown and proven in studies to protect you from cramping, dehydration, and muscle strains and injuries. There was a study that was done in 2003 that was a year long. They had a group taking creatine, they had a group not taking creatine, and they had a group taking a placebo. For a year long, the group that was taking creatine experienced less cases of dehydration, cramping, and muscle-related injuries. That's crazy. That's crazy. Because I'm sure we've all heard that creatine is dehydrating, but it actually is not. There's actually many other studies as well showing that taking creatine can lessen the effects of dehydration and increase your endurance and lessen the effects of heat, and heat-related injuries happen less often. And there is zero research showing that taking creatine can cause you to be dehydrated or cause you to suffer some sort of heat injury. So don't worry if you're playing some type of sport, if you're running, if you're doing a lot of cardio, if you're worried about being dehydrated, you spend a lot of time in the heat, you don't need to worry about it when you're taking creatine. You really don't need to worry about it. I promise you're not gonna pass out or have cardiac arrest because you're taking creatine. You'll be okay. The last thing that I wanted to talk about with creatine is people that think that when you stop taking creatine, you're going to lose your gains. That's not how creatine works. Creatine isn't a steroid. It's not gonna fuck up your hormones, and then your hormones crash and you come off, and then you lose your gains because your muscles are atrophying. That's not gonna happen with creatine. Creatine just gives you the ability to perform more reps of an exercise and get a little bit more endurance through anaerobic activity. Prior to stopping taking creatine for a month, I was benching 275 for a 5x5. And that was my last set, 5 reps at failure. When I stopped taking creatine, I went back to 265 for a 5x5. I didn't get any smaller, I didn't lose any weight, I didn't lose any muscle size. I simply lost some ability to perform more reps at a higher weight. So as soon as I hopped back on creatine, my weight went straight back to where it was before. I'll say it again, creatine simply gives you the ability to perform more reps of an exercise and have a little bit more endurance during anaerobic activity. You don't have to worry about losing gains or getting any smaller or getting significantly weaker stopping taking creatine. Creatine is going to do nothing but help you. In conclusion, creatine is the most studied, the most researched supplement in the industry. It is one of, if not the safest supplements to take in the industry, and it can actually prevent injuries. It can prevent issues with dehydration and cramping, and it can help you to lift more weights in the gym and work out for longer without being fatigued. Taking creatine is an absolute no-brainer. If you're natural or even not natural and you're working out, you need to be taking creatine. I'm telling you, you need to. It's a game changer. It's gonna help you out tons, and don't worry about what people say on the internet. I promise creatine is safe to take, and if you ever don't trust my word for it, or don't trust anyone else's word for it, you should look up the research on your own. Type in on Google, does creatine blank, whatever question you have, and don't tap on any blog posts. Tap on PubMed articles, actual articles published by researchers and scientists. Look at the research. It's not that hard, it'll tell you. So, take creatine and get after it.